orders of the officers appointed over me,
and the orders of the officers appointed over me,
according to the rules and regulations of war.
according to the rules and regulations of war. Thank you, sir.
Congratulations.
The Battle of Bull Run, or the First Battle of Manassas, was the frontier battle of the American Civil War, with almost 900 deaths in the first battle alone. Frontiers are about first, things or theories that have not yet been discovered, and once they are, history is forever changed.
The war affected all Americans as the Civil War dragged on for years to come.
It is a frontier because it is the first. The Battle of Bull Run was the first battle in the Civil War.
Tensions between the North and South were very high due to the ongoing fight about slavery. On April 12, 1861, the Confederates opened fire on Fort Sumter in American territory.
Within 5 months of Lincoln's election, 11 states seceded.
South Carolina, Mississippi, Florida, Alabama, Georgia, Louisiana, Texas, Virginia, Arkansas, North Carolina, and Tennessee. West Virginia was actually formed out of the parts of Virginia that did not want to secede but still allowed slavery.
The South claimed that the Constitution stated that they were allowed to leave. Lincoln rejected the South's secession and said that they wanted to find a peaceful solution. Tensions were already present before the Civil War, though, from almost 75 years earlier.
Lincoln rallied 75,000 Union troops. The Bull Run battle was named by the Union based on the nearby creek.
Without the proper training from advanced generals, the Union did not know how to follow higher command and other battle strategies.
Civilians gathered around 5 miles away in Centerville to watch. People would picnic outside of the battles, even with their children and families. The people out in D.C. could hear the cannons firing. They said it was distant thunder. People did not have uniforms made for the soldiers because they thought it would be a swift 90 days. Even Lincoln thought that. They were wrong.
When it was time for battle, Lincoln received a letter saying the Union troops were not ready to fight.
It took the Union 2 days to walk 25 miles to Manassas. In fact, General Irvin McDowell later complained about how long it took for his troops to take because they were stopping for water.
So by the time of this battle, it wasn't yet standardized into, all of the Union troops wearing that dark blue and all of the Confederate troops wearing the gray. That would come later. So at the Battle of First Manassas, it was actually quite confusing, sometimes to figure out which side a certain unit was on.
Troops in Wisconsin infantry wore gray, even though they were Union soldiers. One elite Union regiment actually wore red to add to the confusion, and the 5th Virginia Infantry wore blue, and they had to tie cloth around them to prove they were from the South. The soldiers didn't know who to shoot at, so they had to pause and identify themselves. The soldiers didn't always obey command, with replies like, maybe we'll do it this way, or maybe we shouldn't. That was because they were untrained.
Judith Henry was at her home with her 14-year-old slave and her son. In the distance, they heard the firing of guns. The son and slave tried to evacuate and carry Henry out on a mattress. Over the period of time that she was gone, Confederate troops had gone and hid into her home. The group then turned back and went back inside the home. With no clue of the other people inside, the Union troops blew up the house. Judith Henry's gravestone still is on the battlefield today.
Judith Henry was born in 1776, the year that the country was formed, and she died the day the country almost collapsed.
She was the first civilian to die in the American Civil War.
And the other significance is that the battle revealed the importance of modern technology like the railroad, for example. And so people often talk about this with First Manassas because the Confederates were able to bring crucial reinforcements to the battle by railroad. Roads were a fairly new technology at this point and hadn't been used much in warfare before. So it was a good sign that they might be able to play a crucial role in the way armies fought wars in the future.
Manassas connected the Union government of D.C. and the Confederate capital of Richmond. The Confederates were the first to fire, and they stole the Union's cannons. One out of the 5 bloodiest battles was Bull Run. Estimated casualties were 2,896 for the Union, and the Confederacy had 1,982. Irvin McDowell retreated. Union. Lincoln removed General McDowell after the Battle of Bull Run. Halfway through the battle, the Union celebrated their victory. But as they were trying to retreat and finish off the Confederate soldiers after pushing them back, they waited for reinforcements, which allowed Confederate reinforcements to push in. They stole the Union's cannons and forced them until they retreated.
Once the Confederate soldiers were coming up, Union troops fled. Over 1,000 fled and went missing by the end. To win the war, the Union used General Ulysses S. Grant. He helped turn the tide in the war. The Emancipation Proclamation of 1863 released all enslaved people and allowed them to join the Union Army. 200,000 black troops were fighting for the Union. It went from a war to save the Union to a war to free the slaves. Lincoln had to replace his top military generals 15 times because of such poor leadership toward the end of the Civil War.
It really showed off the importance of Union persistence just in keeping going, keeping the Confederates hemmed in and wearing their resistance down. The three main commanding generals at First Manassas, they all survived through the Civil War. So Irvin McDowell, PGT Beauregard, and Joseph Johnston, secondary generals at the battle, did not survive the war. And a good example of that, Thomas Jackson, Stonewall Jackson. And First Manassas is really where he made his reputation, where he got that nickname.
The Civil War cost over $100 billion in today's money, destroying farmland. It was the North and South's food supply. Not only that, most Southerners were farmers, so their farm and business was completely destroyed. On top of all that, over 900 people died, and a couple of them were innocent civilians. A lot of cities were completely destroyed, especially cities in the South. This was Richmond, Virginia after the Civil War, the capital of the Confederacy.
Kind of big major battle of the Civil War is that people on both sides realize that this is a real war. This is a real war that's not going to just end very quickly with one small fight. This is going to turn into something big. Decisive victory. The Confederates won because the Union retreated, but it's not like the Confederacy destroyed the Union Army or took everyone prisoner. So it wasn't a decisive battle, and that meant that everyone realized, okay, this is going to continue.
The soldiers who had survived the Civil War had built a statue, a dedication to the heroes who had fallen at Bull Run, but it was later changed to the Patriots, a throwback to the Patriots who had helped build the country. It was just a simple brick structure, but it stands on the battlefield today. The total amount of deaths in the American Civil War were almost as much as the total amount of deaths in every single American war combined. American deaths in the Civil War, 622,000, and American deaths in all other wars, 638,000.
The Battle of Bull Run was named the worst battle in U.S. history up to that point.
In conclusion, the Battle of Bull Run was a very significant battle in the American Civil War. Civilians who came to watch were traumatized, thinking it would be some sort of a show. All they found was bloody, destructive war. This is a very important topic because it not only explores the first battle of the very significant American Civil War, but it also shows the difference between the beginning of the first battles and the ends of the last battles.
My name is Paul Quigley. I teach history at Virginia Tech, and I'm also director of the Virginia Center for Civil War Studies here.